Welcome to Backstories, the podcast where we dig deep into the untold tales behind the people, places, and moments that shape our world. Every month, we'll uncover the hidden narratives that inspire, surprise, and challenge us. So, grab your headphones and get ready to journey into the past, one backstory at a time.
All right, we have one more story. The Misty Vale of Old Ellicott City. Welcome back, Prague.
I feel like I should be sitting in a chair telling this story. All right. Walking up Main Street in Old Ellicott City is like walking back in time. Its bending, narrow road climbs up from the river crossing and is bounded by the creek, hidden behind and underneath the narrow buildings across the street. The sidewalk is narrow, almost crowded into the street by the stone buildings seemingly carved out of the rocky hill that rises up from the river valley. The ancient gray stones providing both a natural feel and an imposing wall that seems to loom over your right shoulder as you walk up the hill. On a winter's evening like this, as one huddles against the cold, the buildings seem to huddle with you. It's generally pretty quiet in the valley, with only the babbling of the creek and the river and the sound of a few cars climbing up the hill to break the silence. On a night like this, with a heavy fog rolling in, it seemed even quieter. Visibility was getting even worse with every step I took. I was glad I took the parking spot at the bottom of the hill. I had less than a quarter of a mile to go, and yet with each step the fog got thicker. The seasonal decorations shone with haloed lights in the mist. Before I had gone past 6 doors, the fog had become dangerous. I could barely see 6 feet in front of me. With it came an eerie silence. I couldn't hear anything at all. No cars, no random voices up or down the street, just the wet blanket of fog infiltrating every pore, exposed and disorienting me. I continued on carefully, and suddenly I could hear again the footfalls, the squelching of steps behind me. Odd, given that I was on concrete. Huddled as we both had been in our respective coats, we managed to surprise each other. "Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me," I said. "You surprised me." "Pray, sir, no. I must beg your pardon. I hadn't seen you in this deep miasma," he replied. I noticed his clothing seemed to be colonial-era reproduction, and I took him to be a reenactor or a tour guide. He was older, African-American, with hair turning white under his hat. "Might I ask, sir, from where do you come?" he continued. "I've never seen such a coat as yours." It was a cold night, so I was wearing a puffy high-tech jacket that kept me fairly toasty and dry. "But I beg pardon again. I'm sure you must be seeking shelter from this strange fog," he said. "It's all right. I'm just going to Backwater Books up the street." "Backwater Books?" he said. "I must confess, I believe I must be disarranged. I do not recognize that name." "I walked from my farm to see how my friends were progressing in building their town. This must be a new addition." He's really committing to this gig, I thought, with a laugh. "Well, come along," I said. "Let's go inside and I can tell you about my coat. Perhaps over with a restoring drink." "Ah, that would be welcome," he said, as we continued up the hill. "You must get lots of questions about history from visitors," I said. "Do you tell them about the bakery that used to be over there?" I asked, indicating a spot across the street. He looked at me strangely. "What do you mean, sir?" The baker's shop is right there. Look, there's smoke coming from the chimneys. He's at his work for tomorrow's custom." I reflexively looked across the street and saw what I expected to see. The shop that long ago had taken the place of the condemned building after the fire. Not really wanting to continue to indulge this play acting, I pointed at Backwater Books and said, "Well, here we are. Here's the bookstore." Again, he looked at me strangely. "My dear sir, are you feeling well? There's no bookstore here." Completely befuddled, as I stood in the light coming from within, my brow creased and mouth open, I bent my head and shook it and looked down for the first time, seeing his feet sunk to the upper ankles in the sidewalk. He looked down too and suddenly stepped back, looking eyes wide at me. "Are you a spirit?" he cried. "What sort of strange magic allows you to float so?" My feet planted firmly on the concrete, I replied, "I'm no ghost, sir, but I think perhaps you are. Look, your feet are below the sidewalk." As I said this, I saw that his stockings were muddy just above where his feet should be. "Sidewalk?" he queried, his face showing his confusion. "No, spirit. Your strange garb, you're floating above the earth. I can see that you are not any sort of man of my knowledge. Do you mean me harm, spirit? Look, I'm no spirit, and I certainly don't mean anyone any harm. I'm going inside. Good night, sir." And I rushed up the ramp, head bent, and stealing glances at the apparition that stood staring at me. "Inside where?" he cried, as I entered the door and shut it. I saw his eyes go wide and his mouth fall open. He looked around as if seeing nothing. He walked as if to follow me, but he reached out his hands like a mime feeling for a wall. The fog enveloped him, and he disappeared. I looked over to Nicolina and Becky behind the counter. "Did you see that?" Looking quizzically at me and then each other, they chorused, "See what?" Thinking better of it, I smiled, shook my head, and said, "Nothing, never mind," and I headed up the stairs. Matt and Sammy were behind the bar and greeted me warmly as always. I ordered a whiskey and pondered. We do live in one of the most haunted states, and this little valley has thousands of years of mysteries. Who knows?